Welcome to Just Thinking. This is Mary Greendale. The title of this show grew out of a lifetime of curiosity about many different subjects. Some local, some global, and some in between. For each show, I will open with my thoughts and then bring on guests who explore the subject in greater detail. I hope the show inspires healthy discussions on camera and among viewers. To me, the sky's the limit when we are just thinking.
Hi, I'm Mary Greendale, and welcome to Just Thinking. So the town election is May 22nd. Most seats are unopposed, but there are a few contests. I will be interviewing candidates for any seat in which more than one candidate is running. I will ask the same questions of all candidates so that viewers can compare one to the other. I have found that this approach works better than a staged debate where people are so nervous we really can't get to know them at all. These interviews will be available at HCAT on television, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So today I am interviewing Anne Louise Hanstad for the school committee. Anne Louise, you are an incumbent. This is the end of your second term?
Second term.
Okay,
yes.
Fine.
Yeah.
And we'll have you tell us about yourself, and then we'll talk a little bit about what your service has already been. So
sure.
You are who?
First of all, thank you. This
You're
is
welcome.
Delightful. It's always great to be on your program. You ask good questions, Mary.
Thank you.
I'm Anne Louise Hanstad, and I have been a resident of Holliston for 21 years. I live here with my husband. We have 3 daughters, and we have never looked back. We loved it from the day we moved here.
And all your girls went through the public school system?
Yeah, I still have one in there. Yes, we have, which gives us a great deal of perspective from the beginning through to the finish line. But we do have one daughter who's a sophomore up at the high school. And I make it my business to keep a pulse on each of the buildings and their issues and their priorities. So I stay involved with everybody in the district.
Good. So in terms of your present, the current terms, what do you think's been your biggest contribution or your biggest accomplishment? And I recognize, and people should recognize, you are one of 7 other people. You get to make 0 unilateral decisions. It's just sometimes so frustrating when you think about how much work and time and everything, and you never really get to decide anything. But anyway, and you also have a very strong superintendent. So
we do, but therein lies actually a pretty interesting accomplishment in and of itself, which is the ability to collaborate and work with your colleagues on the committee and on other boards and aim for a common goal. And I think in that context, I've actually been able to accomplish a lot. When I first joined the school committee in 2012, we were on the heels of the recession. We had just a year and a half prior passed a very significant override in town, and that left the town reeling, quite honestly. I mean, there's absolutely no question we were grateful for their support. Education in Holliston would not be the same today if that hadn't happened. But it was a big push, and I made it my business when I joined the committee to find a fiscally sound way to help financially manage the budget without going for an override. And it has been 8 years. So I think that's actually a pretty big accomplishment. And yet, in spite of that, we've been able to secure a number of restorations as the economy has improved, collaborate with the Finance Committee to secure funding for a number of capital initiatives, technology in the schools, infrastructure improvements. So I'm actually pretty proud of having done that, and I do take some personal credit because I've been on the budget committee for 6 years. I've chaired it for several years, and it's true. I couldn't have done anything without the committee at large, but it takes some finesse to be able to pull that off, honestly.
Yes, and to still be standing when you finish it.
Yeah, and I have my bruises, and there's moments. But so there's budget, and then a couple of other key things, and I'll just mention them. I was really instrumental in identifying student stress as a real challenge throughout the district, and in urging Dr. Jackson to put a formal effort forward to address that, that challenge. And it's not going away, but the Student Stress Task Force that he launched really was an impetus that we worked on together, and it was something that I was really pushing for. And there's been some very positive outcomes, including a revision to the homework policy and a couple of other things that we're still engaged in. I think I've also helped spearhead an improved communications and outreach approach for the committee. A lot of that work has been done with Lisa Koshin in particular, but the committee at large. But it takes a real commitment to want to reach out and communicate and find new ways to do it that are, that are effective and meets parents and the community where they are.
And also doesn't cost a fortune.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, I've actually participated on the last two contract negotiations with our teachers, and those are never easy. Nobody raises their hand and says, let me be on that team. But I did that, and I think we've accomplished a lot together. And this most recent contract, which was a little more protracted, we did successfully settle a couple of months ago. And there were two among many changes and outcomes of that contract, but two things that I think in collaboration with the teachers are really important, and it's surrounding the topic of voice, both the teachers' voices and those of the students. This seems to be the year of voice in the country. But the teachers were looking to have a greater voice in their own professional development. And so now we're going to be collaboratively launching with them a PD council so that they can help influence the focus, structure, and outcomes for their own professional training and education. And in turn, we were looking to create a more formalized approach to incorporating student voice into the equation. And so now we'll be exploring, in agreement with the teachers, a much more systematic, consistent approach to gathering student feedback, age appropriate, but from K through 12, to give students an opportunity to provide feedback on their experience in the classroom. And I think that will go a long way toward shaping innovation and improvement.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, we'll stay tuned on that because I'm sure the process has to be worked out.
It's going to take a while.
It's going to take a while to figure that out. Yeah. Okay. So when you think back to 6 years ago, why did you choose the school committee as your place to serve rather than some other board?
I don't think it was a question of looking for a board. I'm passionate about education. I grew up in a family where my mother, my grandmother, and aunts were all teachers. My father was first generation to receive a college education, and education was always viewed as the single thing that could propel you into a better future. Mm-hmm. And I believe that. I genuinely believe that we can change the world, solve big problems with education, and that every student is entitled to that. So that was it. There's always some little nuance, something that gets you to say, okay, well, today's the day I'm going to sign up and run.
Or else somebody talks to you.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that I have found over the years, is somebody says something to you at exactly the right time and says, have you ever thought of running? And it just catches you at the right moment.
Well, that did happen. That did happen. Erica Plunkett was jogging, poor thing, and I just intercepted her as I was driving by and said, hey, Erica, and I had something I wanted to talk to her about, and she goes, I think you should run for school committee, so I did.
There you go.
So, yeah.
So does your work specifically play into this? What relevant experience do you have that specifically links to the work of the committee?
It actually, I think, does. I've got more than 25 years in private sector working in strategy, marketing, and planning, and whatnot. I've worked for very big companies. I've worked for small companies, managed budgets north of $30 million, done a lot of contract negotiation, and managed large teams. You tend to take all that experience with enthusiasm, and when you become an elected official, say, well, I'm just going to go in there and change the world. And public sector is a little bit different. It doesn't, you know, you have to, I think, cultivate a new degree of patience, and there's a learning curve. There is
huge.
It is absolutely different.
Yeah.
But the skills you can apply, I think, are collaboration, learning how to work with others, learning how to reach across the aisle, as it were. A lot of what we do is working with the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, et cetera. And I think learning how to step back and be objective about what you're doing well and what you're not doing well.
The skills definitely transfer. The thing that doesn't transfer is that the bottom line is very different, and the dynamics, the structures themselves, the processes are like as far apart as night and day. And
yes.
I think coming out of the business world, you have the idea that, well, you know what you want to do, and you'll just go get that done. And you don't have to get all of this other stuff done.
And things have to be voted.
Yeah.
You know, you can't just sort of say, well, you know what, we can trim here, we'll just go ahead and do that. Yeah, you really do have to come at it with a little bit of a different mindset. And frankly, I think that's where the 6 years on the committee itself really has helped me. And may set me apart a little bit here, because 6 years is, you would think in 1 or 2 years you'd have it down. I honestly believe that it takes a couple of solid years before you have any real idea of how to be effective. And in that 6 years, you build relationships, right? I've built them with other boards. I've worked really hard to get to know the administration, teachers from K through 12, and it gives you a lot of insight into what's really happening and how to address certain challenges.
Good. Coming ahead to this new term, should you be elected, is there something specific that you hope to accomplish? And if so, how will you measure that?
There's a long list of specific things. So it's almost unfair to ask that, because that list changes slightly depending on whether we're talking about Placentino or the Adams School, et cetera. But I guess the guidepost for what we hope to accomplish is really our strategic plan. So I was intimately involved in helping to develop that. We are in year 3 now, I believe, of the strategic plan. And at the highest level, it really is focused on improving student outcomes across the board. That sounds very generic. What that really means is putting a much greater emphasis and focus on personalized learnings to ensure that each and every student has a better outcome. Last summer, Dr. Jackson, with a lot of support from this committee and the parents, launched Holliston Innovates, hashtag Holliston Innovates.
Right.
And we're at the front end of this journey, but it's really a pretty big sea change for teachers and parents and students, and I think a good one, where we are putting a much greater emphasis on project-based learning, on personalized learning, collaborative approaches, and I think it's going to be significant. So I want to see that continue. And if I think about how we're going to measure success, how I will measure success, you know, it's interesting. It's very intangible, right? But when you see students who are much more engaged in the classroom, when you see them more motivated and student stress start to come down, and we do have ways of measuring that, when you see teachers more motivated and engaged, and I've never seen anything like it, really. Our teachers are really energized by this initiative. I think it creates a little stress. Because it's different and it's change.
Yeah, everything causes stress. Stress isn't all bad.
Right.
You know, sometimes it makes our game a little sharper.
Yeah. But if we do it right, I actually think that the standardized tests that we all shun and we don't want them to shackle us, I actually think our performance will go up without even trying. That's my hope.
Okay. Now, looking into the less positive side of things, what's your biggest concern about the schools for the future?
Yeah. It would be so easy to say budget, right? Because at the end of the day, the sort of cloud of not enough money is always hanging over the district, probably every department. So I guess I'm not going to say that. I think it's a little bit different. I think it's focus. I've worked in a lot of startups, and in a startup, you have limited resources, and you have to learn how to roll up your sleeves and figure out how to do more with less. That's the exact same challenge that we have. And so when I think about focus, I think about making sure that everything we do is put through the lens of that student outcome strategic plan guidepost, and whether or not it's going to make a difference in the classroom. Is it going to make a difference for a child? If we're doing something that, if we were to spend money on things that didn't necessarily drive that outcome, wouldn't be the right thing to do. And that's hard, right? Because everyone has varying agendas and priorities. And we debate those ad nauseum. We debate them in policy. We debate them in the budget meetings. It's a tough road to hoe. Mm-hmm. But if we're disciplined and we work together and can kind of hold the course, I think we'll be okay.
Do you think that your work is transparent to the community? Do you think that you have that kind of visibility to the community? And
sorry, I'm kicking your desk here. I hope so. And let me just say, this is a real priority for us as a committee and has been for me personally. We, of course, televise all of our meetings, and now we live cast them on Facebook, so that's, I think, pretty significant. I want to thank HCAT for making that possible.
Do you get questions as a result?
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We do, and I was surprised to hear of some folks who were watching, but you know, when you're traveling on business or home and for whatever reason can't get to the cable and you might have your phone, I think it's surprising. People absolutely love it, so that's huge. We launched a newsletter a couple of years ago that has become a huge success. I'm blown away. We just got 50 more subscribers yesterday.
Good.
And Lisa Koshin gets, gosh, a lot of credit for that. But it was an idea born out of she and I over coffee. So I think it was a great initiative. But transparency is more than that, right? It's about honesty and integrity and making sure that you're sharing with the public really your goals, priorities, your intent, and your plans, and how you're spending money. Several years ago, I began searching for a solution for transparency on financial matters. And I came across a couple, one out in LA in particular, and then there was a local startup that was putting some effort into this, and I reached out to the Finance Committee and urged them to consider it more carefully. They actually don't have a budget, so they handed it to the Board of Selectmen, and here we are today now with a solution in place where you can go online, you can go to the town website, you can go to the school website and click and find the ClearGov solution that will show you how every last dollar in the district is spent.
So let's make sure everybody understands. You can also just go to cleargov. Can't you? ClearGov. Maybe
you can go to cleargov.org, but frankly, it's right on the town's website.
Okay.
It's right on ours. It's really easy.
And it's statistics about us, but also a bunch of other communities too.
Yeah, and allows you to look at how Holliston is doing financially, as in the context that's really easy to understand. And I think that's what's important. You don't have to be an accountant. The whole point is to understand maybe what spend per pupil is, or how the town is spending money in other departments, et cetera. And that sort of transparency, I think, is really huge, makes a difference. At least it helps people answer questions. So,
Yep. Well, and it also fact checks. When you get to somebody that says, oh, but we spend, more than anybody in the region, it gets to be pretty easy to go back and refute that.
I mean, one caution, there's a lag in terms of how the numbers are reported because a number of them come down from the state.
Right.
So it's really, you can't go on and just look at exactly what's happening
it's not real time.
today. But
Exactly.
if you want those answers, just come to us. We'll get them for you.
So where do you get your own news and information from about what's going on in Holliston?
It's interesting. Well, other than you.
Oh, you're right.
The Holliston Reporter, certainly, it's such a great venue for just really keeping on top of everything. Metro West Daily News, because they cover some, major things and across the board. I stay in touch with the other boards. I reach out to the Finance Committee on a regular basis, collaborate with the Board of Selectmen. I recently over the past several months was speaking with the Council on Aging because, frankly, I think there's a lot of things that they're trying to address that our students could help with that I'd really like to see happen. Holliston Happy is a good one.
Yeah. I try to avoid rants and raves or whatever.
I don't spend a lot of time tracking news on social media that way because I just don't have the time. But and parents reach out.
Sometimes it just gives you a clue as to something's going on out there, and then you can go ahead and start, asking around.
So.
All right. Well, do you have anything else that you want to say? Because we're just about out of time here. I'm really looking forward to this. School committee, at times, is a labor of love. But I bet it is a lot of the time.
But it's so rewarding because, by and large, I am so proud of the Holliston Public Schools. 2 of my daughters are out, and that almost makes me sad. But they've done well by the Holliston schools, and I hope that's true for most students. And I really want to make sure that it is. And I know there are a number of things that we're still working on.
Always will be.
We're still working from early childhood up, and we are so focused on that because at the front end, if you can get that right, you have a better outcome on the back end. But I'm really enthusiastic about this.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you for joining me. All right.
Thank you.
So thank you for watching Just Thinking. Please, please, please remember to vote on May 22nd.
Yes.
And please remember that town meeting begins on May 7th. We need a quorum of 100 voters. And there is one issue that looms large, and that will be the DPW's request for $8.375 million for a new water treatment facility at well number 5 on Central Street. I want people just to be aware of that. This question also appears on the town election ballot as a debt exclusion request. So this means that we borrow the money, pay off the note, but do not increase our tax base under Prop 2.5. It is a once and done debt. It must pass a town election in order to move forward. Please participate. Nothing happens unless the town, the people, actually get out and vote. So thanks very much. We'll see you next time.